Hey everyone, this is Scott from certmedia.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to set up Redis caching on Cloudways. Redis caching, for those who don't know, is a text similar to Memcached, which comes pre-installed, that basically caches database queries from your WordPress application to the database, and it stores it in memory. The benefit here is a lot of intensive applications such as WooCommerce or just a really large backend WordPress panel can see very large improvements in performance by enabling Redis. Now, if you have multiple WordPress websites in your Cloudways account, there are extra steps you're going to need to do, and I'm going to walk you through them because you can run into a lot of interesting issues if you choose to run Redis on multiple websites simultaneously. And we're going to be setting up something called a cache key salt to alleviate those issues, so that way you avoid strange issues. A common one that I see is users who have multiple applications on Cloudways and they don't have a cached key set. What happens is the URLs may cross. So say you go to certmedia.com, it may resolve to another website I have on that instance. And I'm going to show you how to avoid that. And I'm going to show you how to do it using a plugin. That way you avoid any complexity of having to use FTP if you're not comfortable with that. So the first thing you have to do is in the Cloudways instance, you have to go to your server. You click the server you want to manage it on, and then you're going to go to Settings and Packages. Once that's done, go to Packages and make sure that Redis is installed. Once this is installed, it may restart your server. That's totally fine and normal. After your server's reset and it shows that it's installed, make sure that when you go, you're going to click on the Manage Service windows and that Redis cache says it's running. After you've done that, the next thing you're going to want to do is we're going to go to our website. We're going to need to install two plugins, one of which we're going to remove after we're done making an edit. The first plugin is just going to be called File Manager. It allows you to edit files in WordPress from the WordPress admin panel. I don't ever recommend keeping a plugin like this installed for anything other than what you just need it for. This could be a security issue if somebody manages to get in as an administrator account. So we're going to click Add New, install the first plugin, File Manager. It's got 600,000 active downloads. And this is just a great little plugin. I don't recommend leaving it enabled for any time longer than you need. You're going to click Add New, and that's when we're going to get another plugin. And this one is called Redis Object Cache. What this does is it actually connects the WordPress panel and website to the Redis software running on your server. And it does this by adding a new file in your directory for object-cache.php. And that's where it processes all the WordPress database queries and object calls that are being done. If you use W3 Total Cache, you're going to have a very similar setup, but I don't use W3 Total Cache in most instances, so I honestly just prefer using Redis Object Cache. It's just straightforward and super easy to do. We're going to click Install and Activate. This does not enable it. We have to do that afterwards, but what we're going to do is open up WP File Manager. And we're going to click on our wp-config, and we're going to click here. And you could choose to enable WP Cache. If it's enabled and it's set to true, that's ideal. But what we're really trying to do is add a little snippet that's called a cache key salt. This basically is just a way of WordPress defining what your website is and to keep the cached queries separate. So it's going to look like this. I am going to include it in the description, and if you still ask about it, I can put it in the comments. So the cache key salt has to be unique to the website that you're working on. So I'm just going to call this Cert Media Staging. And you can name this key salt whatever you want. It does not matter. You just have to make sure that it's unique to this application that you're working on. You can, and a good way to do it is just call it whatever the URL is. So if it's certmedia.com, you put certmedia.com. It doesn't matter. You don't even have to put the .com, just something unique. After you do that, you're going to click Save and Close. That's all you need to do. And then before we enable this, we're going to go over here and we're going to deactivate and delete this plugin because somebody is going to leave this active and get hacked, and I don't want that to happen. So then you're going to go to the settings panel. And as you can see, it now includes a key prefix. So all the keys that now get cached in memory will have a prefix enabled. So one thing we're going to do right before we click that enable cache button is I'm going to add Query Monitor. And Query Monitor, for those of you who are less savvy and don't debug, it's basically just a handy tool that gives you general information on your WordPress site. It'll show you database queries, it'll show you PHP errors, and it gives it in a nice little panel up here. So the thing we're looking at is right here. It says object cache. There is an object cache not in use. And Redis object cache is installed but not used actively. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the settings panel over here and enable this. Now, as you could see, it first was 14 queries and now it's 12 queries, and we're going to reload it again and now it's down to 1 query. So our total database query time is now considerably lighter from where it was, because all those queries that it was now running are now being saved into memory. Because they're saved in my system memory, it now reduces the calls that I have to do directly to MySQL, which makes the backend faster. If you're running a WooCommerce website in particular, this can help a lot, especially when it comes to trying to open up orders in the backend, because that's a very database intensive task, and having them saved in Redis allows you to access the data faster. And it also makes the site more resilient. When you have somebody placing an order, it's a fairly intensive task. But if you have 100 people placing an order, the task tends to be a little bit repetitive. There is a bit of repetitive nature in what your site has to go through. Maybe it updates the cache transients. Maybe it just is sending the data to the database. I'm just giving very broad examples here for the sake of simplicity. But by caching the common things, which this plugin does, it allows your website to use less resources overall and have a faster backend experience. Now, one thing that's great about this plugin is it only caches queries and objects. Your pages are not cached, which means you can continue to use something like Cache Enabler, WP Rocket, whatever you're currently using as your page caching solution. So this is going to make your website load faster. It's going to make it use less resources if it's an intensive website. And it's just going to make your backend experience much more enjoyable. If you have a specific question about this implementation, please feel free to ask in the comments below and I'll try to help you out. I use this on every website on my server. It just makes my backend considerably faster, especially if I'm writing and working on it. And I can't recommend it enough. This is much better than the performance I was getting using Memcached on Siteground for comparison. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.